Hey everyone, Miko here with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. Thank you for joining us for our free Wednesday Zoom calls. Here you're watching on YouTube, but you could also join us on Wednesday. If you're interested in the link to these calls to join live, feel free to send us an email at info@behavioranalystsupervisor.com. You can also just check out our Instagram. We post questions every single day on Instagram. We also post the link to our free Zoom calls. Every Wednesday, we go through a different task list item area, such as A1. We'll talk a little bit about that task list item, and then we'll go through 3 mock exam questions relating to that task list area. We hope that this provides an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about the task list and also dive deep into question dissection. We here at Behavior Analyst Supervisor really focus on providing explanations on why an answer is correct and why it's also incorrect. So we appreciate that you joined us. If you have any questions throughout the duration of this video, feel free to shoot us an email, hit that like and subscribe button for more information. Also, you can always leave a comment and we'll be sure to reach back out to you. Thanks again, and I'm Miko with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. You'll also be hearing from Amy and Kevin. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Anybody here? Hello? Knock, knock.
There are people here.
Hello. I'm Kevin, and
I'm
Amy's
Amy.
next to me. She's usually on this side of me, so it's kind of weird that she's over there. But anyway, you can tell kind of we're in the same room, and Miko's over there in Florida. Yep,
How's it going, y'all?
We're here to talk about the next thing that we want to talk about, kind of randomly each week, pick a different topic. So G6, use instructions and or rules. So when I was thinking about this, I was like, well, what's the difference? And I think all of you probably have some opinion, like what's the difference between instructions and rules? So let's discuss it, and feel free to jump into the discussion if you want. But I think what we really were going to end up doing is not caring too much about discriminating between them, but using them in teaching, basically.
So Kevin and I have been discussing them all morning.
Yes, we have. Yes. Speaking of, so if you Google it, you'll get from Oxford Languages, you'll get these, an instruction. So detailed information telling how something should be done, operated, or assembled. And I was thinking of like trying to find an IKEA sheet, with like the Flurgernickers goes into the Dorkenflock and whatever, but I didn't do that. So we're gonna look at some other examples. So instead, or in contrast to an instruction, you can say the rule is one of a set of explicit or understood regulations or principles governing conduct within a particular activity or sphere. And again, I'm sure you guys listening have an idea of how to discriminate. Oh, well, instructions does this, rules is different because of that. Okay, so we can discuss it. But I'm just going to boil it down like this. An instruction tells you how to do something or do it, whatever that is. And a rule is what to do or not to do. And then hopefully this is stated, but it may not be, is what will happen, the contingency, right, as a result. So that's how we're going to say these are different. And it does say instructions and rules on the task list. So it's like, well, I guess maybe they're 2 different things. So any comments about that? Because like I said, you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different definitions a little bit.
Apparently, you're just supposed to keep going.
Yeah, I can do that.
We know.
I want to make sure that I hear you. Okay, I hear you out there. All right. So here's one idea, and I really want some deviled eggs now when I see this. But hard-boiled eggs, prepare the eggs, make the filling, spoon in the mixture, garnish and serve. Those to me are which? A rule or an instruction? Or to you, I should say. What do you think?
Maybe they're chatting Miko.
Yes, I hope so. But if not,
I think that
yeah, go ahead.
I think that these are instructions to me.
Yes. That's what I'm thinking too. Are you thinking the same thing?
I am, because we talked about it already.
Yeah, we did kind of set that up, didn't we? So I don't think this is too hard to understand. And whether you want to think this is a rule or not, again, I don't think that's that big a deal. But we know that this is a verbal statement of a contingency. If you do these things, you'll get this, maybe. We could turn that into more of a rule or sound more like a rule. But I would say this is more of an instruction than a rule if you're going to discriminate. And how about this one? Things like no diving in shallow end, no running, pushing, shoving. There's this one, no peeing in the pool, use bathroom. And you're not allowed to do anything that begins. I thought they should say, hold my beer, but fine. Hey, y'all, watch this. So is that an instruction or a rule?
Cool. Everyone in the chat said rule this time.
Okay. So maybe that's one distinction we could say is an instruction tells you what to do, and at least sometimes a rule says what not to do. Don't do that or else. Like I said, maybe the contingency is said. This does say at least one of them isn't just no. It's like use the bathroom instead of this. So that's nice. But a rule could tell you kind of what the expectation is, whether it's don't do this or, you know, in our house, this is what we do. That's a rule. Okay. Well, it's fun to try to discriminate or just think about it. You guys can think of other examples, but let's get into some questions. And again, you can chat Miko, and then we'll talk about the answers. I don't think these are going to be too hard. Probably the ones on the test. I can't think of a way to make instructions and rules really difficult. So I think you guys will do great here. But then I want to discuss the idea too on how we use these in practice. All right, here we go. You get a client to look at you, you know, orient, attend. Then you ask them to touch their nose, their knee, and then their elbow. They do not respond. Your statement is then what? Rule governed, an instruction, contingency shaped, or an intraverbal.
We got quick fingers in the chat today. We have, it looks like we are in, total agreement that B is what we like the best.
Okay, I thought maybe I'd fool you because the client did not respond. So at least maybe we would say their behavior is not rule governed, or they didn't listen and follow that instruction or that rule, right? So I agree with you. It's an instruction. You still gave the instruction. Oh, this kind of reminds me of some people have said to me, oh, well, it's not a man if you don't get what you asked for. I'm like, well, if I ask you for $10, it's still a man. So I think this is still an instruction, even if you don't, get the follow through. It's still what you wanted them to do. So I agree with everyone here, apparently, that that is an instruction. Okay, like I said, things aren't that hard. At least I can't think of a way to make them too hard. Don't put an eggplant in the oven without poking several holes into it first. Otherwise, it will explode. After hearing this, you cook your first eggplant and remember to poke some holes. Your behavior is rule governed, an instruction, contingency shaped, or escape maintained. This might be harder, I don't know.
A lot of rule governed coming up in the chat.
Okay, kind of makes sense. Any other answers there?
Nope.
Nobody else like anything else? No. You just know what this topic is about. So I thought maybe somebody would go for D, because honestly, yeah, your behavior probably is escape maintain, but you're also reacting to a rule. So you have not done this before. That's clear from this first eggplant. And so you aren't reacting to the fact you've already experienced this or whatever. You're saying, oh, I want to avoid that because someone told me that that could happen. So it is rule governed for sure. And probably escape maintain too. That's what I was hoping I'd grab a couple of you, but whatever. You're just too smart for me. So rule governed, that's it. That makes sense to me. I would like to get into, maybe after the next question, the difference between these, the rule governed and contingency shaped. Those lines are blurry for me. So we're going to try to, come up with ideas for things that are fully on one side of the spectrum and things that are on the other side of that spectrum. But let's try this one first. I was taught the FOIL method for solving binomial equations. You guys remember that? X minus 1.
First, outside, inner, last.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I do
It actually
remember.
says it right here. That's why it turns first, outer, inner, last.
That's
Yeah.
from a long time ago.
Yeah, see, it's stuck in your head.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, is the FOIL method rule governed, an instruction, contingency shape, or a high P request sequence? I'm sure you guys already know this.
Instruction is what we are going with. It looks like we've got a lot of 100%ers tonight.
Yeah, we got 100% smarty pantses. So if we have all these smarty pantses here, and you understand this, then you're going to know, okay, so an instruction that tells you what to do is basically, I think we can think of it as a chain. So a change schedule. We're just talking about putting together a couple of steps or more to get something done, to meet the contingency, whatever that reinforcer happens to be, getting something or getting out of it. That sounds good to me. Maybe we can add to our definition there. So Miko, Amy, anybody else, I'd be happy for you to chime in on this. But again, what I was going to say about separating these two, rule governed and contingency shaped, I want to see the control from the rule or the control of your behavior being from the thread or the experience that you've had contacting that contingency. Like it's going to happen, or you think it's going to happen, then it's probably contingency shaped, or if it has happened before. Whereas I think with rule governed, you're just being controlled by what someone says or what you read without the likelihood of contacting reinforcement or punishment. Does that work for you guys? Got anything to add to that?
Works for me.
Okay.
The only other thing I can think of is, so a couple weeks back, staff meeting, we talked about what happens if you are driving down the road and you get pulled, your friend is driving, let's say your friend is driving down the road and they get pulled over and receive a speeding ticket. So your friend was driving, they get pulled over, they receive a speeding ticket. For me, who's in the passenger seat, I only go the speed limit. What is that behavior for me? Is it rule governed or contingency shaped at that point?
Yeah. See, that's a difficult one. Like when you go by that spot, maybe, would we say it's contingency shaped? And that's muddled. That's why it's hard for me sometimes to pull that apart. Because yeah, you're responding to, actually being there, even though you didn't get the ticket, somebody else did. See, that's interesting. But that's where it gets confusing. And I think the test will make it clear one way or the other, whether you're likely to contact it or not. Okay. So this is what I thought we could get into. Oh, you told me not to forget, and I did.
I know, I was going to mention that you forgot, but then
Well, you usually
mention it later.
In my defense, I don't remember anything, and you keep me on track. So you should.
All right.
Keep us on track.
Those of you who stay till the end, we'll be giving away a new to you mixed mini mock. So stay here, and I have already put your names in a random name generator, and we'll pick a
You
winner.
were good. You're on it. That's cool. Okay. And if you already have it, we'll figure out some other way to
If you already
repay
have
you
it,
for
we
your
have
presence.
a couple other ones.
That's
we can
true,
pass
too.
your way.
Okay. So I thought, because I knew some of these questions would be easy, and you guys just rocked it. I was hoping to confuse some of you, but I was like, okay, let's talk about how you, and this is the, what is it, G-6 we're talking about, use instructions and rules. So if you just think intuitively about how instructions are more likely to be followed, or rules are more likely to be followed, here's some ideas for that. So MOs for completing the sequence of an instruction. So if I tell you to do something and you want to do it more or less, if I can make it more enticing, talk about increasing the magnitude of the reinforcer, or decreasing it if I don't want you to do it, right? If I can do that, that terminal reinforcer becomes more or less valuable. That probably has an influence on whether you follow the instruction or not, right? Contacting reinforcement for completing instructions. So if you have received reinforcement for completing, the making of the eggs or any instructions in general, then you start to have, oh, okay. I think that's down at the bottom, using schedules of reinforcement to make instructions into SDs. Like, oh, okay, I have followed instructions in the past, and now when I come to a similar situation, I know following this instruction will get me to a terminal reinforcer. Back up here, we're talking about reinforcement, but we could also talk about punishment, right? For not completing instructions correctly. If you put that IKEA furniture together without following the instructions and it falls down, or your mother-in-law falls on it when she sits in the chair, then you didn't do it right. And maybe next time you'll be reinforced for actually completing it, or listening to the instructions, or watching the instructions. This one comes up, I think, if you can think of like just where somebody has said, oh, don't do this because awful things will happen. We have a friend who might say to me, don't stand by the microwave. It's very bad for you. I'm like, I don't know. I stood by the microwave for 50 years and it seems okay. But if you think that, you might react, or you might follow that rule because it's really manipulating your MO. Like, oh man, I better not do that because I could get really hurt. Or the opposite. You could say, oh, really great things will happen to you if you just call now. And for 3 easy payments of $19.99, you can have, whatever. So you manipulate MOs, and that's what people are doing with their advertising, right? But you can do it with clients as well. And emphasize the positive consequences of a rule. Same thing with MO manipulation. But you can also use it yourself as a conditioned reinforcer. So if you are, why do we follow some people's instructions and not others? We talk about like, oh, they're trained, or they have authority, or I have experience. I trust these people. Well, what we're really saying is there's some conditioned reinforcer that we recognize this is a person who hasn't led me astray in the past, or to say it the opposite way, they have led me to reinforcement in the past. So I see them as someone who, when I follow their instruction, will get me to where I want to go. So it's just lots of, intuitive ways you can imagine how you make rules and instructions more useful. But this is kind of explaining or thinking about it in ABA terms, right? Conceptually systematic terms. And I think that's the fun part. It's like you take all these intuitive ideas and you try to interpret them. And I think this does help you think about the test. Like, okay, what are they doing here? They're manipulating an MO, or this client we're talking about followed the rule or the instruction. Therefore, it was rule governed. So all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Going deep with those. Oof.
Exactly. Well, because I knew, come on.
On the surface, they're a little too easy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I tried, but I failed. It's okay. We all fail sometimes. Just have to get back on the horse. So anybody have comments or questions about, we can talk about other things too, but this, rules, instructions, you can think of examples, I hope.
Yes, I have a question. Can we go back to Can we go back to the first question?
Sure. I think if I can get this to do it.
Okay, so here you said you get a client to look at you, then you ask them to touch your nose, your knees, and your elbow. They do not respond. Mm-hmm. So I think what threw me off is they do not respond. So how does that, because I would think in an instruction, if I say, hey, write your name, and then you write your name, that would be an instruction, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so when you say they do not respond, can you help me understand?
Sure.
Is that just, was that just to throw me off?
Yeah,
That's
it was.
exactly what he
Yeah,
did.
Okay,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
And I'm so happy that I got you because, yeah.
You're evil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need to understand I'm evil and it's going to help you because exactly that's what I'm saying. Okay, so if I catch you, now you're not going to be caught again
Yes.
because it is still an instruction even if the kid doesn't follow it. I'm assuming.
Okay, got it.
Right?
Okay,
But
so
you wouldn't say that their behavior was rule governed because you'd be like, no, they didn't follow the instruction. They
exactly.
didn't. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, so it's still an instruction, but because they didn't do it, it's not a rule governed.
Right. You got it.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
Awesome. See?
Another. Oh, can I get it? And I just want to give just an example. So, and then
Yes,
a rule
yes.
is a 3-term contingency. So, meaning if you write your name on this paper, you're gonna get candy. So if they write their name, then they get that candy.
You got it.
Okay, got it. Okay,
So
thank
the
you.
paper and the pencil is the antecedent and your instruction, and then they behave and they get the reinforcement. Absolutely. That's it.
Got it. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, you bet. That's sweet. I love that you came up with examples too. Go ahead.
Another analogy for an instruction and not acting on the response is like when I get a piece of furniture from IKEA, the instruction manual doesn't come out of the box. Try to do it myself. Doesn't always work though.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, what do you do about that? Do you just not buy anything from IKEA? Do you smash it after you put it together and it just isn't working?
Well, it might become contingency shaped after I sit on the couch and it crashes.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, okay, I better follow the instruction. It does make sense, I hope, to people that at least what we were saying were our instructions, that's a chain schedule. You're really just talking about it's a behavior chain. First you do this, and second you do that. A goes into B and B goes into C, etc. I don't mean to sound like I'm talking about stimulus equivalence, by the way. I'm just talking about, whatever the IKEA furniture instructions tell you to do. So if you're doing all that, you're really just, okay, I'm done with step 1. The reinforcement for finishing step 1 is presentation of step 2. I don't feel reinforced there, but whatever. When it's finally finished at the end, there you go. And it has to be done in a specific order. Yeah, multiple schedule in a specific order. That's it. Okay, all makes sense. You got your random generator?
I do.
Because I'm like,
but
I got nothing
kinda
else to
wondering
say.
what this is. You started like a question
Oh,
or
I
a
did.
scenario that you never finished.
I did. Well, I did that, but I think we talked about it. Like,
Okay.
I talked about the that continuum idea between rule governed and contingency shaped, and Miko's question about the seatbelts. Like, it's in between. It's like you kind of contacted the contingency, but you kind of haven't. What's the likelihood that you're going to get pulled over next time? That you're going to get pulled over rather than your friend? And that's what I was going to bring.
Well, and I don't think they'll do that to you on the test because that's just mean.
Well, they might be mean on the test.
I don't think they'll.
I have one more question. I just have one more question. I'll be done.
No,
So,
don't feel bad. I love it.
So I know that the first 2 pictures is like, okay, no running, no diving. So anything with a no or like do not do will be a rule.
Yeah. And it isn't stated. It should be, if we're really going to say, oh yeah, this is a great rule, should be stated what the contingency is. What if I do run? If you run, this is going to happen.
Okay. Because that's what was kind of confusing, because I see that there is examples where it says no littering. If you litter, then you'll get a ticket. Because when I think about a rule, I think about the 3-term contingency. That's why I'm just like trying to make sure I understand more.
Yeah, so I like that, Catherine, and if everybody else, honestly, if you see these kinds of rules where the first part is stated, you need to stay on the trail or don't run. Okay, that's only the first part, but we generally know that there's something that comes after that, like or you'll get yelled at, or yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for clarifying.
No, that's great.
yeah.
Okay, I do.
Yeah. Where did it
She
go?
said I have one more slide. I'm like, oh, there's nothing there.
slide on the website. There we go.
That one? Oh, that one.
That one. And then Miko has something he wants to say.
Oh, well, should Miko just say it now?
Sure.
Go ahead, Miko.
Awesome. So as y'all know, we post questions every single day on Instagram, so feel free to check that out. There's a really tough one today, 2 terms that we think of as AKAs, but the Cooper book separates them and gives a really clear discrimination of when they are AKAs and when they're not. So check that question out. I think it's really hard, and the comments are split 100% in half or 50% in half, either way you want to say it.